Hello, everybody, and welcome to the world's favorite youth baseball podcast, Clearing the Bases, featuring Coach Jimmy Filangeri. I'm David Friedman, and I want to thank you for coming along on this ride with us. How we doing today, Coach?
Doing good, Dave. Happy New Year.
Yes, Merry New Year. We are pumping these things out here while we have a little extra free time, a couple extra days off during the week, so great to get on and talk some baseball during a time of year where I don't usually think too much about it.
Yeah, and by doing them, piggybacking them, I don't know, are we going to have anything to talk about, or we just rush right into the episode? I mean, usually we get a little, good stuff to talk about.
Well, I guess baseball must be a little bit more on your mind these days with the convention coming up.
Yeah, this is Christmas after Christmas, right? So it'll be next Thursday, heading out there, get the mobile recording studio hooked up and get ready to start interviewing some people right from the convention like we did last year. But this year, instead of doing it on my own, this year it's part of the ABCA where we'll actually have a booth where people can come and sit down and relax and chat.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see what kind of cast of characters you get this year. Maybe we'll get some repeats from last year. Maybe we'll get some new people. It'll be very, very interested to see how that works out.
Yeah, we have some good guests lined up. I don't know, should I give everybody a little preview of the guys who are going to be on?
Yeah, you can give them a taste. Give them a taste.
So we have Jim Chester from Gardner-Webb University. We have R.J. Farrell, who is a USA Baseball national team coach. And we also have Jerry Weinstein of the Colorado Rockies. So, yeah, we're lining them up.
All right. Awesome. Looking forward to that. Funny that you left off on somebody that's associated with the Colorado Rockies, because we have, for today's special guests, then I'm ending that with an S because we have two gentlemen with us who are affiliated with the Kansas City Royals. So we definitely have some heavy hitters coming up here. We have Jeff Sopha and Shon Plack. And it'll be really interesting to see what their take is on the state of youth baseball, considering that they're being backed by a Major League Baseball team.
Yeah, like we talked about, I was out in Kansas City for the Youth Baseball Summit, and Jeff and Shon were part of that group that met out there. And yeah, everybody that was there, Dave, they all have a wealth of knowledge in terms of youth baseball. And I just thought I want to try and get as many of those people that were there on the show to give their point of view, and was starting with these two, which really, really two good guests.
Well, yeah, when you're dedicated enough to this sport and with the demographics that we're always talking about, that you're going to go out to Kansas City in the middle of November, why, they must be dedicated to this.
Yeah. Yeah, them and, again, everybody else that was there. And, it's like I could go on and I could talk about this forever, but to have people, like Jeff and like Shon, that are so dedicated, along with everybody else that was there, that are so dedicated to youth baseball, youth development, trying to make it a better world like we talk about all the time.
Yeah, and no offense to our fine folks out in Kansas City. I know it's one of our major hubs of listeners that we have. I was more being facetious there, but it is a busy time of year with holidays coming up and all that stuff. And so to gather this group of people, as we talked about previously, like I said, the intent, you have to believe is pretty pure. So without further ado, let's bring on Jeff Sopha and Shon Plack.
Okay, everybody. So tonight we have two special guests, which is something that I don't think we've ever done before, and they're both from the Kansas City Royals. We have Shon Plack and we have Jeff Sopha. Guys, welcome to the show, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
All right. Hey, well, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. Jeff Sopha. I actually have a full-time job as manager of engineering at T-Mobile. But I was hanging around the baseball community growing up as a coach here in the Kansas City area, and started being around Shon Plack more and more, and seeing him at the ABCA convention, seeing him at a lot of community events. And Shon approached me at one point and said, hey, how would you like to be a liaison for the Kansas City Royals back into the community, supporting the growth of the game? And man, I jumped all over that. And, the past few years has just been a great ride to see some of the amazing things we're doing. So, my side hustle is volunteering my time in the community on behalf of the Royals and really spreading the good word of the good work that Shon and company are doing.
Yeah, my name is Shon Plack. I'm the manager of sport development for baseball for the Kansas City Royals. Our mission is to be stewards of the game while implementing the Royals way, trying to grow the game basically in the Kansas City area, taking care of all sorts of aspects of the game. We have 6 pillars that we're really trying to hit on. One is coaching development, player development being another, parent education, sports medicine being another, umpire and umpire development and retention. Jeff helps us in all those ways. We run camps in Kansas City. We have the ability to have some teams that are examples in our space to be able to develop and kind of run a good climate of parents and players within our leagues and tournaments around Kansas City. We also are kind of indirectly involved with our scout teams, which travel the nation and play throughout the United States and with some of our top players. So we're trying to take care of a lot of different facets with our program, all the way from 8 to 18, and creating a development plan for parents and coaches and umpires.
That's great. I just want everybody out there to know that Dave and I had spoke about the Youth Baseball Summit that I had attended in Kansas City, and I guess you could put 2 and 2 together and figure out that that's where I met these 2 gentlemen at that conference. They were both there, and I thought it would be a good idea if we got on. We kind of talked a little bit about what we had talked about at that summit, and I don't know how you guys felt about it, but I thought it was wonderful.
I would agree. I think that it was great for our community to have people throughout the United States with the baseball minds that they have, and the education that we can bring just to our community was fabulous. So, coming to Kansas City and being able to show off our stadium and our city a little bit was really a kind of a good thing, but kind of a selfish reason to be able to have the people that were in that room help the leaders in our community develop the game. And that was tremendous on our behalf. So we're very grateful for everybody that came into town.
Yeah, I'll second that. Jimmy, when we sat around that room and you just looked around the table, first of all, what a number of folks, but the quality in the names. I mean, this wasn't just an ordinary group of casual coaches coming together. These are folks that are really invested in the games in their communities and doing good things for baseball across the nation. So to be sitting at that table was truly an honor. And to hear everyone, for the most part, really be on the same speaking page with regards to the wants that we have for growing this game, for ensuring there's organic growth at the youth level and there's consistency in how we coach and teach the game at the higher levels, but also talking about player health and life beyond the game. It was just amazing that this level of folks coming together, really all talking about the same thing, was truly impressive.
Yeah, I got to tell you, and I said this on the last show, that I was humbled. I mean, I walked into that room and saw all of the seats and the tables, the way they're arranged, and all of the placards that with everybody's name. And when I saw my name on one of the placards, I was kind of looking around, like it was surreal. I was like, what am I doing here?
Rob did a great job of organizing.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, shout out to him.
Yeah. So
sure.
Yeah, and everybody, Shon was making reference to Rob Haney. He's the chairman of the Youth and Travel Committee for the ABCA. And yes, Rob put that all together, and it was really wonderful. So let's jump into it a little bit, guys. Let's see. Let's go to, you gave us a little bit about what you do, Shon. I want to get into a little bit of the RAD, the Amateur Development System of the Kansas City Royals. Why don't we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So our sport development has developed it's basically Royals Amateur Development, and behind that is, like I said, all aspects of what we're trying to do, the 6 pillars. I'm really kind of in charge and the focus of coaching development. So taking, our travel team baseball, we're trying to support every aspect of baseball, from travel to, onboarding of kids. How do they get involved in playing, and making sure that we have lifelong fans of the game. So when they get to be our age, they're educated baseball fans and they want to go and can pass it on to their kids. I think one of the things that we really want to, express through our program is, if kids want to take their first date to Kaufman Stadium, I hope that's what they choose to do because they love the game so much. We're developing players like that. If they make, a higher level of college or professional, that's great. That's kind of an added bonus if we can do that. But, we're here to develop the lifelong fan and teach kids how to get on board and play. I guess one of the struggles, that we really talked about was speeding up the game and trying to make sure that our youth are engaged in it at a young level. It's not such a slow game, and take it from there. And where that love develops into the teenage years or even the high school years, the later high school years, we can develop a pretty good baseball player, and on top of that, a pretty good person with the stuff that we have, all the resources, the resources that we give the players, as they get older, are the same resources that our minor league players would get with some of the game plan courses and which is time management and we put them in a place where they can develop meaningful relationships, how to have those one-on-one conversations, whether it's with the coach or in an interview process. So trying to just develop a well-rounded person and give them all the resources that our minor leaguers would have or even our major leaguers would have, to educate themselves and parents and develop a well-rounded person that loves the game.
Right. Well, I like the idea that you'd mentioned several times about creating a well-rounded person, because in the end, as coaches, that's really what our number one goal is, right? To create good people so that they'll be good fathers and good people in the business world. And it's more than just baseball, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. So, Jeff, tell us a little bit about your role.
Well, so first of all, let me just really give a shout out for what Shon and the Rads team have built, because I made a joke earlier about my wife and names, but she doesn't really call me any names. I'll tell you first, Jimmy. I do have to say this in case she listens. I am extremely blessed that my wife is a baseball lady, and she is passionate with me for what I'm trying to achieve. I mean, she comes to a lot of the camps and clinics that I put on, and she helps organize the kid and takes the name and puts all this together. But more importantly, she's very patient with the amount of hours I put into this. And I say all that because there's a reason why I am willing to put all of these hours of my own time into what Shon and the team are doing. And, this whole notion of the whole player also goes to the whole coach. And it's this whole process that the Royals have laid out. And it's the way they share it with the community, the way they test it with their own team KCs, and the way they give it back by way of camps and crown leagues and crown schools. It's a consistent message. And it's similar in light to the ADM from USA Baseball, but it's blown even bigger than that in a very digestible way, so that if you're a coach, you take it in a player. So what I do is I take that, and Shon and team can do a lot, but I'm right here in my community in Olathe, and I hope that what we're doing is building a template that I can take what the Royals are doing. I can put on coaching clinics. I can do player clinics. I can be around, Olathe Parks and Rec or Olathe Youth Baseball or Johnson County 3 and 2, Blue Valley Rec or whatever more often. And I could see coaches that have been to my camps. I could stop in their dugouts and games and say hi to the players and really kind of organically build the fun. But what we do is we start at the ground right here in the community with it, and we start with the skills discovery aspect of the game, right, where we're teaching fundamentals and fun and just how to communicate, and we repeat that. And then as coaches, we learn that that's for the child and the athlete to learn, and then we help them along the way to autonomously learn that. And what I try to do is get those coaches to understand, you need to teach your athletes accountability, yes, but that accountability isn't just running rep after rep after rep. It's how to handle the failure that comes with the game, how to reward that effort, how to build the passion so these players can progress and they can apply those skills they're learning up until the point where you get to the game. And now as coaches, right, we're sitting back. We're not talking through every pitch. We're letting the players run the game. They're letting them make the decisions, play the game. So, we talked in the summit, right? Baseball isn't the fastest sport, right? It's more cerebral and it takes a little longer. But if the players own it, they're accountable and they recognize the failure and they make their own decisions, I think they enjoy it more. So what I do is I take all of that, which I'm getting from the Royals, and the opportunities they give me to be around great coaches, professional coaches, long-time skilled coaches, and I take that and I feed that into my community and spread it as wide as I can in hopes that it continues to just kind of from the ground up swell into something great for Kansas City baseball.
That's great. Well, first thing I have to say is that what you mentioned about your wife, I cannot agree with you more, okay? Because without the support of my wife, there is no way that I would be able to do everything that I do between coaching, the high school team. I was coaching travel baseball, doing the podcast, doing the writing that I do for Inside Pitch magazine. Takes up a lot of time. Plus, I work a full-time job. So I'm never around. And
I think, Shon, every time I've ever called you, you're on the road doing something baseball. And I asked him if he was ever home once.
Yeah.
So tip of the cap to all of our wives that put up with this.
Absolutely.
From us coaches.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about, we've mentioned development. Okay, so development, I think, is a very broad term. It means a lot of different things to different people. So let's talk about that a little bit. What do you guys, give me your ideas on development. What is it?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Boy, that's a loaded question, right? I think development really talks about where a player is in their skills approach to the game, meaning are we really developing baseball players at 6 or 7, or are we letting them discover the game and fall in love with the game and enjoy it? For me, development might be something we talk about as players progress through the game, where maybe we're developing a specific skill or a specific mental ability to handle the failure, as I'd mentioned before. So for me, development really is it's a big umbrella term that probably broadly covers different aspects that are age appropriate for the game. What I'm developing with the high school teams that I coach is a lot different than when I go out and run a camp and I'm teaching a 7-year-old how to hold the baseball correctly. I don't know if that's development as much as that's more discovery and letting it kind of flow. When we get with older kids, you could talk more. You're developing, you're fine tuning, right? So it for me, honestly, it covers from the course adjustments you make with younger guys to the fine tuning with your older, more advanced guys. That's development.
Okay. Yeah, I would just add too. I think with development, it's long term. I think we get caught in this fast, quick, easy fix lifestyle that we live in, and we lose fact that development is over a course of time. From, like I said, in my eyes, it's 8 to 18. We're trying to, take a skill and polish and continue to get better at it. And whatever that is, whether it's the individual, trying to grow the individual or trying to grow the physical skill that we're talking about. And, I tell our coaches sometimes development can be really ugly. And, there's times where it doesn't look all that good, and we have to deal with the failures and with what we're doing, but you have to stick with it, believe in the process, believe in the kid, and hug him in those times where it's really hard, and pat him on the back when it looks like they've been, they look like they're major leaguers. And so I don't think development always has the same face on them, on everybody. It's a long-term committed process to the kid to see him through from all the way from 8 to 18. And I would just say too that you just have to grind it out sometimes. It's a tough deal, but the enjoyment you get at the end is pretty good. I think there's a touch of reality sometimes that we have to give our players with the development and the stages that they're at, to be able to show where they've improved and how they still can improve and where they're at. So, I do think it's long term. I think we get caught in a short term definition with development instead of something that's longer term. And being an educator with development is really important. Somebody told me, one of our coaches, we need more educators in the game than we need evaluators. So if we have educators and people that are teaching, then the development is going to be a lot easier than always evaluating. Be an educator, be a teacher, and keep it long term.
Sean, I'm gonna add something there because you said something that I think is really important that I feel every coach listening to this will probably relate to, and I'm not sure a lot of parents understand it, and I think it gets to a lot of the anxiety that kids sometimes feel. And it's an internet meme. I've seen the chart a million times, but development and growth isn't this straight line up the curve, right? It's this sine wave that moves. To your point, it's sometimes ugly. I mean, how many of us have coached a 12U team where one weekend you're like, oh my gosh, who are these guys? This is great. And then the very next time out, you're like, oh dear, who are these guys? That's the cycle of development. And to your point, you love hard and you work through it and you focus on the athleticism, you focus on the whole athlete, the mental side, learning to make failure acceptable within the program, making sure that above all, we're having a good time while we're learning. Educators, great way to say it. I love that.
We are teachers. That's what we do. We teach. We just happen to be teaching baseball. We're not a math teacher or social studies or whatever. But one of the things that you said, Sean, that it brings to mind a term that Steve Springer uses all the time, and he says, we have to put them in an oven, not in a microwave, because it takes time. It takes time.
Absolutely.
And we live in a world where everybody wants that microwave, and that's a shame because the development part is, there's so many things to it. And I've had conversations, and I'll give you an example of one I had where we were talking about development, and the person said, well, the development takes place in the facility, doesn't take place on the field. And I was like, well, no, it takes place in the facility and it takes place on the field. Jeff, you had mentioned about the mental aspect. That is a huge part of development that we need to do. So there's a lot of stuff that we need to know.
Yeah, and that mental for me as a coach isn't just about getting over failure. When I talk to athletes and parents, when I do my preseason meetings, I always have to remind parents, don't misconstrue my lack of saying a lot of things during the game as a lack of coaching. Because right, what I need to see on the field is I need to see first and foremost, does the player make a decision? Are they willing to put themselves out there and make a decision? Now, whether it's right or wrong, I just want them first as part of this development cycle, feel free, feel comfortable, make a decision, even if it leads to failure. Number two, is it the right decision? If it's not, I keep a little notepad in my back pocket. We'll write it down and talk about it. If it's appropriate in the game and the athlete gives me permission to talk about it, then we will. Otherwise, we hold it to the next practice. And then thirdly is the actual skill part. If they tried it, it was the right decision, they just couldn't do it, that's a great problem. That's a failure with a great outcome because we could work on that skill, right? There are things we could do, drills we can tackle in practice, and I'm going to reward you for that effort. Great job, man. Great decision. We're going to work on the execution. It's all good, and then if you made a decision, that's the mental thing. It's just getting to the point where you can do that. And I see today, especially at the younger level, so many athletes, so many baseball players are told what to do. They're not free to make the decision on the field. So when I say the mental game, it's not knowing first and thirds and where to run. It is those things, right? But those are age appropriate, right? There's a level, and Sean's got a great chart that we use for that, but it's just allowing them to mentally be free and play the game.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can tell you that, you would ask me, how I was making out my new role. And one of the first things I did was I put together my mental performance program. Okay. And there are no X's and O's in that program. It's all about focus. It's all about thought process. It's all about that type of stuff. But again, it's part of the development and we need to teach it. If we don't, then, we're not doing the kids, we're not doing the kids any good by leaving that out.
Yeah, I agree. I for a long time searched for ways to figure out how to deal with failure without having to constantly call out the failure, right? Like it's hard to say that's wrong, it's okay, because you still, by nature of doing that, called it out and they know it. So I started thinking about, as I grew as a coach, how I could address it with practice without actually having to specifically call it out. And my example that I'll use here is, fungo in the infield. If we're doing mass fungo, if I hit you a ground ball, and let's be honest, during mass fungo, you're going to take 40, 50 ground balls from me off the bat. I fully intend for you to miss a bunch of those, right? That's the whole point of the practice. They're not all going to be right at you, nice, easy one hoppers. So you're going to stretch. I'm going to see you go deep. What I've got to the point is I don't ask them to go fetch the ball. I don't ask them to, hey, take another. I mean, you missed it. Just get it to the end of the line, let the ball go. We'll pick it up after the drill. And we normalize it. right? Because that's the expectation. And besides, in the game, you're not going to get a do-over. So let's not give me one more, because that's not going to happen in the game.
Right.
So I try to know. So that's my approach to try and normalize failure and make it part of it. We do need to talk about it, that we need to have routines and such, strikeouts, slumps, etc., missing goals that maybe you set for yourself. Those are important too. But I think just as a general rule for how we think about mental and failure, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in what you had said. I'm in the dugout. You probably come to one of my games, you wouldn't even know I was there. I don't say much. It's like you said, I keep my notes. And if a player makes a mistake on the field, maybe when he comes in, I walk over to him and say, hey, what were we thinking there? What happened? Okay, give him a pat on the back, go get a bat, we're done. But one thing that I have seen a lot that I think is something that a lot of coaches do that I think, again, does a disservice to the player is by yelling at it. And I've actually had assistant coaches that have done this, and I've had to go over to them and say, no, let them make the decision whether they fail or not. So I'll give you, again, an example. Number one is calling pitches. I don't call pitches. I want them to fail while they're doing it. Okay, so this way we could discuss it. What were you thinking? What did why did you call that pitch there? Why did you do this? And they learn from that. If I'm spoon feeding them, I don't feel that it's going to sink in as much as learning from a mistake. So, and one other example, one time that comes to mind, an assistant coach was yelling. There was a slow roller to third base. And I forget the assistant coach was yelling, second, third, whatever he was yelling out of the dugout. And I went over to him and I said, no. That I want him to make the decision. He should already know what he's going to do beforehand. Let him do it. Don't, because now you're confusing him. He may be thinking, one, you're yelling, two, now he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So,
Shon, you and I had a conversation, it was a while back now, but it was really about the whole notion of if the player recognizes the mistake, you don't have to say anything.
Exactly.
Right? They know it. And you could look at him and you see, and again, back to the whys. My wife pointed this out to me one time. She goes, you're doing a great job. And by the way, let me go just on the record saying, any of my former athletes' parents listening to this, I owe all of you a big apology. When I started coaching, I thought I knew everything I needed. Right? But you don't know what you don't know. So here we are talking about it like I'm some expert. But the truth is, I'm still a student as well, right? I'm teaching and the student at the same time here. But I've learned. And I learned not to talk so much. But my wife came up to me and she goes, you're still making body reactions. And that athlete on the field, especially the young kids, the first thing they do when something happens is they look in the dugout. What's his coach reaction? Then the next thing they do is look at mom and dad. And so I've really myself as a coach tried to take myself out of it. And I point to the World Series, right? Could there be a bigger stage in the world for professional baseball than the World Series? What did you see from both of those managers in this series? Man, the guys were just stones up on the fence, just watching the game, right? Talking to their coaches, making some decisions, managing the game, not coaching it.
That is priceless, what you just said, because I struggled with that for the longest time, okay? Again, I wouldn't say anything, but if something went wrong, I may bang my hand, or something like that, which I fought not to do. So I had Sheets on the show, and I was talking to him about it, and I explained this thing to him, and he said what he does is he folds his arms like this. He said if something goes wrong, what he does is he digs his hands into his, his fingers into his ribs. He said, try that. It works. Because nobody sees it, but you're like, oh, God, It was great.
Yeah, it's just handling your emotions, I've been around some very good coaches and had the privilege to be around some good coaches the last few years, and I think one of the things that stuck out to me, I think Rusty Kuntz had told me I can't even remember the number, but there's X amount of situations in a baseball game when you think about, first and second, one out, ball hit the left. What kind of ball is hit? Is it a blooper or a liner? Is it to the left or right? And so the situation always varies, and the decision that the player has to make on whether to go back or left or right, is obviously their decision. And one of the things that another coach had mentioned to me is the team that makes the best decisions usually has the most success on the field. And putting the kids, or we go back to development, and you talk about, the development piece of it, it takes a long time to be able to go through all the different situations in a baseball game and learn from one certain situation or what to do in that spot, So just being able to make those decisions and learn from being in that situation, bases loaded, nobody out, or swinging 3-0 at a curveball that's in the dirt, that where you're in, just stuff wherever the decision needs to be made, that's good or bad or whatever. The player has to go through those situations to learn the wrong way, the right way, and the freedom to be able to, kind of self-reflect it and have a coach help them through those situations and kind of play through all those types of situations,
Yeah, sure.
and like I said, keeping your emotions in check when they go wrong. Hopefully it's better next time, right? And you just keep grinding.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good point. I mean, you're saying decision making. We do. How many drills do we do in practice where we call them reads? Dirt ball reads, fly ball reads. We should actually call them decisions, because that's what they are. We're getting them to read, we're getting them to react, we're getting them to make decisions on their own. Without somebody.
Yeah, we can't make those decisions for them. I mean, that's it. They call them pitches thing. None of our teams will call pitches.
Yeah.
I mean, that the decision's got to be between the pitcher and the catcher. The decision has got to. Those decisions are teaching moments. They're self-thinking. You're developing players that can figure out solutions. Those are all important.
And those are skills that translate. The ability to get a set of information, make a quick decision, learn how to adapt if it's the right or wrong decision. That's a skill that all of us use every day as adults as well. So giving the freedom to learn that by way of baseball or whatever their chosen sport is a great skill. And Jimmy, if you'll let me add here, for any of the younger coaches who are right now where I was 15 years ago trying to figure out how to do this, I tell coaches now at all levels, you should not be practicing as a single team. Yes, you can run some drills, but it's boring for the kids. But get another team together. One, you've got more coaches. You double up on your coaches, so you can have more stations and you can rotate them through. So you could spend half your practice getting some drill work in. But that second half, we could play some two-ball. And in two-ball being, I got a coach on the mound or a machine. You get 2 pitches to swing at. That's it. And we're going to have live runners, so we have situations. Our batters are going to get an opportunity to make swing decisions. Our fielders are going to get reads. Our base runners are going to get situational reads, ground ball, fly ball, line drive. And, man, it's bang, bang, bang. And it's a game. And now practice is moving along at a pretty good clip. Nobody's standing around. Balls are flying. It's a great way to do a lot of the things we spoke about, right? Speed the game up, make fun, have some development. And, by the way, while you're at it, still get a whole lot of reps in.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think you and I might have talked about this on the phone the other day, but with my new program, they don't have a freshman team. They just have a JV and a varsity, and we will work out together. We will do everything together for what you just said. First of all, I want the younger guys to have 4 years of learning what we're doing, which will only benefit the program. But again, inter squads. I was talking to, on the show we had on Ryan Forrest, who's the pitching coach for Boston College, and he said that when they run their inter squads, what they do is they make it 3 2-inning games. And those 2 innings, for them, they consider it the 8th and the 9th. But for like me, I would consider it the 6th and the 7th. So you play 3 2-inning games with the pressure of trying to win that game in those 2 innings. Again, so to your point, it's something that you can do. It'll create that competition that you're looking for and, make the kids work harder.
Well, and you know what? That's amazing. You said competition, right? And Shon, you and I have talked about this too. It's amazing what kids will do when you make it a competition. If it's the younger kids and you got a candy bar in your pocket, or who can hit the target from the pitcher's mound or what. I mean, oh my gosh, man, this game suddenly just amped up to about 10 from 2 earlier in practice, right? With the younger guys, I tell the coaches, man, make it a game, make it a contest, put something on the line, and boy, you'll see some real involvement from the players.
Yeah, I mean, really important. Something that I struggled with as a coach. I mean, you had mentioned that, like when we all start out, of course, we're going to struggle while we're coaching when we're first involved. And like I said, when I first started coaching, I told you this, Jeff, that it was a complete disaster. I mean, I think back on what I was doing back then, and I was like, what was on your mind? It's a process. You got to learn, and, we have to get better also as we go.
Yeah, I told Devin from Driveline, I said, hey, the next book you have to write, I've got a book. It's about 8 inches thick of every coaching mistake I've made. By the way, the current book is still about 2 to 3 inches thick. So if we could just write a book to help people get from the 8 inches to 2 to 3, imagine how great coaching will be.
Exactly.
Which, by the way, all the reason to go to ABCA, because, man, you will learn a lot by osmosis hanging around some of these coaches that attend that show.
Coaching a perfect game is harder than throwing a perfect game. Very difficult.
Good point. Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, again, one little slip up and, it's gone. And, I'm dropping a lot of names here because you guys are bringing up things in my head from past shows that we had. But when we had Chaffin on, Butch Chaffin, he said anybody could change the pitcher after he just gave up a home run. He said it's the coach that could change that pitcher before he gives up that home run that is on his game. And to your point, Shon, that's it. There's decisions you have to make. You got to be on top of your game, and it's just like a player. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose.
I tell you, I can't tell you the times I've driven home from a game, win or lose, and thought about how to do it different. And I think that's a thing parents need to understand a little bit too. Is sometimes they can be a little critical, a little hard, but I think coaches are hard and critical on them too, and they always think about a different thing they could have done to help and change and whether it's in practice, what Jeff's talking about, being more prepared, or a substitution or a move or a mound visit. I mean, there's always things that that's why it's a game and a sport. So to think that coaches aren't developed, and going through the same process of trying to be a decision maker and a thinker as well in some of these situations is kind of crazy, but that's the truth. We're going through the same thing.
Right. But I also think as a coach, when you realize that, sometimes you're going to be the hero, sometimes you're going to be the GOAT, and that's the way it is. You know what? It makes your decision making easier. Because, I mean, I know me. I said, well, you know what? This is what I'm going with. I'm either going to look like a hero or I'm going to look like an idiot. Let's do it, And once you realize that, it makes it a little easier for you.
I got a question.
Analytics plays a big role at the major league level on some of that, that we don't have that in the youth space. Sometimes it's a gut or, sometimes it's a feeling you have or something that's worked in the past and, you go about it. There's a lot of stuff in the Major League Baseball that people get paid a lot of money to figure out some of those analytics in those situations, right?
True.
So
I have a question for both of you, actually. So let me turn the table on you, Jimmy. I got to a point, it started more with the kids being 12 and up, where I would actually plan out a 7-inning game. I literally had a spreadsheet that I would plan out players in positions and pitchers and catchers in particular. I always started by planning out pitchers and catchers. And I generally kept it through pool play games, bracket, obviously there are different decisions when you're on your travel team. But in the league stuff, it was pretty well planned out. And I took a lot of flack on that because a lot of folks really win. Like, hey, you can't make that decision. This guy's rolling. And my thing is, winning is important, and I want the kids to understand that, but so is engagement and knowing your role in other aspects of the game. But my question to you specifically, especially now in your role as a high school coach, how far out do either one of you guys plan out your games?
In terms of moves that I'm going to make?
Mm-hmm.
I got to be honest with you, I really don't plan it. I would say I'm more like what Shon said, where I go with my gut and what I'm reading. We'll go back to that, reading thing again. I read the game, I read the pitchers, I read the hitters. I make my decisions that way. I can't say I've ever really scripted something.
Not by the way that I would say that you won't go off script, but to have a roadmap to get you where you think you need to be. Shon, do you do it at all with any of your teams?
Well, I think. I mean, if I have a 4-game tournament, I want to know the innings that I have and the pitchers available to be able to, I try to think in my head best case scenario. You get up, 6 runs after 3 innings. We've got a little bit of a cushion. Well, what happens if you get behind? And try to play scenarios in my head and what works here. How do I get somebody in the bullpen or have somebody save a 1-run game in the 7th if it's going that direction. But I think there's some planning that you can kind of do pre-game or pre-tournament. But the flow of the game and the feel of your players. I mean, the some kids aren't going to feel like they've got it some days. Some guys are on fire, and then just kind of. I think what you're saying is you have a plan of attack throughout your series or your game, and you want to draw out some scenarios. But when those scenarios happen, you're going to have to make a decision, during the game to be able to, I guess, in 162 games, you're not going to win them all. So are you going to burn a lot of fuel in one game to lose your next three because you've depleted a little bit of your bullpen or used a guy that, can't come back or some of those things. But to me, it's just knowing your personnel a little bit, knowing the guys that don't need as much rest maybe on a higher level, that can come back, after a 20 pitch outing 2 days later, and guys that need a little bit longer rest. I mean, those are all kinds of things that you think about. And then the flow of the game sometimes, I guess, would dictate, but to script it, definitely, I don't think I could probably say it's going to go perfectly throughout 28 innings the way that I perceive it, on a paper on a Thursday before a 3-game series.
Yeah, I love both those responses, and I'll tell you why I'm happy that you said those things, because I agree. Your script isn't necessarily a script that you follow, but I also think, and we mentioned this earlier, like all the planning that coaches do before and even after, the thought process after the game. Thursday before a tournament, and I'll speak in travel baseball here as opposed to league baseball. Thursday before a tournament, I'm a little more relaxed, right? I'm probably sitting in the living room or in the office, and I'm thinking, and I'm doing manager things, Shon, like you mentioned. Everything I think you mentioned, in my mind at least, is about managing and not coaching. I know my players. I know my pitchers. I know who can come in for an inning if need be, who my starting catchers or my secondary catchers are. I've gotten to know them, so I'm managing that. So I can script a plan that at least helps minimize the difficulty of the decision in game. I can go to these notes that in a calmer period I've been able to take down, and I have a scenario at least to start with to start my strategy right there in the game. I get to work with my assistant coaches. Here's what we talked about Wednesday and Thursday. Are we still good with this? Is this the guy we're going to go with? How's he feeling today? Did you have him warm up? How do you look pregame? And I'm just curious because I want to know how many coaches go through that prep to minimize for them some of that pain process, the decisions. Because again, for parents that are listening or other coaches, as you stay in this game and do it, those decisions that you just mentioned, Shon, those are tough. And
I think if you look at it in terms of the at-bats, at a youth level, and you're committed to long-term development with kids, I think at the end of the year, you don't want to see a heavy at-bat on 2 or 3 kids. You want to see a little bit of your at-bats distributed throughout your lineup. So when you get done with in August and you're looking back at your season, and you're defining cess with some development in mind, you could probably plan, your at-bats. Like Jimmy needs a couple more at-bats this game, and we've got to get more at-bats for him to, at the end of the season, it looks a little bit more, equal or level. I think you could plan some of that out, and I think some of it can be, in scouting and knowing your opponent and who, if you got to put out an A lineup out there, you can, kind of know when and how to do some of that. But I think you can script a little bit or think through some of your at-bats throughout that series, and hopefully at the end of the season have it a little bit more even.
That's a great point, because it goes back to the development we were saying, right? In practice, maybe you've got a kid that says, Coach, I'd really like to get some shortstop in. And maybe to your point, right? He's not your A shortstop, maybe not even your B shortstop, but how do I know as a coach I can't help develop him into a place where he's a better shortstop, and maybe he's battling for that B spot, or maybe next year hits his growth spurt and he is potentially an A guy. So, we're going to get the drill work in practice and we're going to see his skills, but at some point you got to have a way to get him in the game. So, I'm not saying scripting maybe was a bad choice of words, but some type of strategic plan is to looking for those opportunities for him to get the in-game reps, to really, like we said, go through the mental process of making the decisions, to put him in that, oh my gosh, the ball just got hit to me mode. What do I do? And give them those opportunities so it balances for them as well.
Well, going back to what Shon said about the at-bats, Okay, so when I was coaching travel baseball, that's how I described it to the parents, how I would keep playing time. Because again, travel baseball is a different animal in high school, but try to keep playing time as equal as I could by number of at bats. That's the way we did it. Okay, so I don't even remember. I think it was 50. So I would promise them that nobody would get less than 50 at bats. Okay, and obviously, your leadoff guys are going to get a little bit more, and there are some guys that get a little bit more, but the at bats dictated. So to that point, yes, I would have to script things because I would look at the lineup and say, well, I've got to get little Johnny 10 more at bats to catch up to everybody else, so we would play the next 2 games, and it's that simple.
Yeah, with our little team that we've got with 11U, we got a team where the last out is the last out of the game is the next guy would lead off the next game, so we just float that through. We'll keep a lineup for a weekend or so and kind of float that through and move kids around accordingly. But I think there's a little bit of one of the things that makes me upset sometimes is why is my kid hitting third? He needs to be hitting third. Well, you can come up, you can impact the game in the 8 hole. You can impact the game as the ninth hitter. And I think that's where kids have to understand that it doesn't really matter where we put you or how it goes at those younger age groups, and they get caught up in where they're hitting in the lineup. Man, it's about impacting the game and being ready, and allowing yourself to be ready for the situation when it's your turn to hit. And baseball's crazy like that. You can come up with base loaded and hitting as an EH in the 10 hole. Just be ready for your opportunity. Yeah. And that's taught.
Depending on the game, it's only the first time through the order that you're hitting in that spot anyway. So it really doesn't matter.
Who puts priority on that is the parents, right? And I feel like that plays into the kids. Of course, they watch baseball. Well, I hope they're watching baseball. Not like we probably grew up watching baseball, but they're getting their 30-second clips off YouTube. But they know, hey, he's the 3-hole hitter. They know their stats. I think what we can do as coaches is wherever they are in the lineup or wherever they are in the field, that we stay super positive with them about this opportunity that's coming up, right? If I make that more important than where they actually are in the lineup, with the younger guys, I was prone to, 1 week we go 1 through 12 if you're batting a lineup, I'll just say, and then especially in league. Okay, next game we're 12 through 1. We're just going to flip it. Obviously, you're going to do things different depending on your level of play and if you're pool or bracket if you're a travel team. But I'll tell you this, we have another coach in our Team KC organization, one of our high school coaches, Coach Newell. I love what he did this fall. He told the boys, look, take some accountability for yourself. If you're on the bench more than 2 innings, that's on you. Find a buddy and say, hey, I'm going to jump in here and get some outfield reps. I'm going to get some infield reps. And you know what? The first couple of games, they were looking at each other like, what is this strange and foreign idea that I'm just going to get in the game and get some work? It's fall ball. What a great place to do that, right? They took some accountability. They worked with each other. And for the most part, man, by week 3, these kids are bopping in and out of the game whenever they needed to. And I thought it was the most amazing thing. And, he and I were both on the field, so nobody was coaching that in the dugout. Granted, they're high school kids, but I don't see why that could not work with younger kids as well.
Right. I mean, it seems like a good team building activity. Am I wrong there? Where, in other words, the kids were actually helping each other.
Well, what I got from it is I don't think, to what you were saying and what Shon was saying as well, I don't think it mattered in the lineup anymore, right? Because the kids were just knowing, hey, I'm going to get an at-bat. I'm going to go stroke a baseball, right? I'm going to hit something hard. And that really kind of became more the focus as opposed to, where am I in the lineup or where am I in the field? It was like, hey, I'm going to pop out there and make a play. I'm an athlete. Drop me on the field somewhere. I'm going to get something done for you, Coach. And Coach Newell did a great job. I think he got the kids really kind of bought into that philosophy. And I think when we get the boys back together after our winter workouts and start, kind of our fielding practice, I think we're going to see them working together really closely because of that.
Yeah. That's, that's an interesting thing. I'd never heard that before. And, I mean, sounds like a great idea. It's something I might try. I mean, why not,
I get it. Time and place, right? Like, we're not going to do that probably in our high school season when we're competing for state, we're going to probably have something more organized, and maybe not on bracket day, or maybe on bracket day. Maybe it doesn't matter. Again, to the point of development, right? I think that's another thing. I think all of us, and maybe we could have a conversation here about that. I got it. Winning is important. That's why we're here. We're here to win. But it shouldn't be the only reason or the most important reason, right? It's a goal. It's the byproduct of everything we've done well. Puts us in the winning spot, and the coach making good decisions, players executing. But so much, there's so much peanut butter and jelly in that sandwich there that's got to blend together. And I feel like, maybe Shon, you said earlier, everybody wants that shortcut to it, right? It's still a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? It's not a steak. So treat it as so.
I from my personal experience, I became a better player after catching for 2 years, and I knew how to play third base better because I could read a swing or know, kind of where to position myself or I think teaching the game, we're getting further and further away of teaching the game. It's turning into more individual skills and more, just how hard we can throw and how fast we can run. And this decision making is kind of leaving a little bit, and knowing just like the dirt ball reads and being a good base runner, we're losing some of those skills. And so if you can see the field from a different perspective, even though you may be out of position from time to time, I think at the early levels it may be help you long term to kind of learn a different see the game through a different lens. And ultimately help you be the player that you end up being at the position you end up falling into, and I'll go back to the phrase, like the thing that I think is really important is letting those kids know that they can impact the game. And if you're on the field, you're impacting, and you're going to get an opportunity to impact it somehow. And your impact is want to be positive. Everybody wants it to be a positive impact, but you either get caught up in the me or the we, and that impact the game and helping your team be successful in whatever you define that in. And if it's wins, it's wins. If it's moving in a higher age division or a higher level of whatever, that then or at the end of the season seeing yourself as a better player. Those things are all factors and things to be considered.
That's why I believe, especially at the younger ages, it's so important to move those players around the field. Okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen it time and time again. This is my shortstop. Well, he's 8. Okay. Let's move him around, give him, a different perspective, like you said. And it's so, so important.
100% what you both said. In fact, Jeff Diskin is going to be very mad at me, Shon, because I cannot remember the name of this game. He taught me. So Jimmy, I do a fall camp for high school athletes who are fall sport athletes, or maybe they're in track or they're in band. So they got commitments, or maybe they're just a freshman overwhelmed with being in high school and girls and all the stuff that comes with the first time in high school. So I make myself available, along with, I'm fortunate to have a great group of volunteer coaches that will do this with me. And we show up on either a Saturday or Sunday, depending on when the high school gives me the field, and we'll be there for 3 hours. If you want to play some baseball because you can't commit to a fall team or anything else because you're committed to that fall activity, I'll be out there on that Sunday on the field, and I'll set up some structured drills for you to get some more. We'll play a scrimmage or some kind of fun drill game, and you can get your work in and become a better baseball player without having to give up focus on your fall activity. I think, Shon, would have 51 total kids signed up over the course of 8 weeks for this camp.
Wow.
It's an amazing thing. Some of these kids are great elite ball players, and they're coming out just to get some work. Some are, transitioning from recreational baseball, looking to see what it's like to play against high school age kids. I have freshmen through varsity guys, and they all intermingle. And so some of these kids, it's the first time they see some of these bigger, stronger guys with body hair, right? But all of that lays the groundwork to say that I had Jeff Diskin come out one time, and he taught me this drill with these kids that I love, because I feel like it teaches empathy and understanding of the game from different perspectives, just as you said. And this is how the drill goes. We have one group that's in batting. So whether it's a machine or a dead arm coach, we have the other teams out in the field. The way it works is you can treat it like two ball if you want, or maybe have a situational hitting. It doesn't matter. Let's say it's a ground ball to the shortstop. Shortstop fields it clean, throws them out at first. Everybody rotates one position. So we work, right field, center field, left, third, short, right, all the way through pitcher and home. If it's a fly ball, whoever catches it comes in and hits. If it's that ground ball, like I mentioned, right, the first baseman goes to the pitcher comes in and he's now a hitter. So we don't necessarily have teams, but we're just moving. And here's the deal is everybody is playing a position, and every out we make an adjustment. So throughout that, you're going to play that position. You're going to get reads. You're going to understand the game. And even if that's not your primary position, you understand that position a little more. You understand now maybe why the second baseman's going to run out there for that double cut to the ball, hit to the right field corner, right? Maybe before you ask, why do I got to go out there? He can make the throw. Well, now you understand why, because if that throw's offline, right, the shortstop's right in his back pocket and can make the play, right? So I love it, and it was fast paced, and when a bunch of high school kids loved it, and by the way, they were pretty worn out after it because it was moving pretty quick. But it developed, I think, Shon, what you were just saying, that empathy and that understanding the game from multiple different aspects. And for me, it worked out as a great way to keep, 28 kids that day moving all at once.
Yeah. And I mean, even with the older kids, why not? We touched on it a little bit before. Development is development, regardless of, whether they're 8-year-olds or they're 16 years old, move them around, let them get their perspective. I think that's a great idea.
And, as a younger coach, you can do that with another team. Invite them out to your practice. I always tell these leagues, you guys are tough. You're hurting on field. It's tough to get practices. And I tell these coaches, you guys should find a coaching buddy, right? And you guys share that practice field. Again, partner up your coaching, double up the coaching. You get the number of drills. And you could do fun games like this where it's a competition. There's something in it, and base runners get to keep running, right? We don't kick base runners off the field in this drill. They stay there. We don't clear the bases. So they're getting reads, all sorts of different kinds of reads from different bases. And the only measurement they had is how many times did they score. So it's an individual. Right? So kind of at the end, it was a little bit of bragging, right? I scored 5 times, I only scored once. And I think this could really be something that younger coaches can do, to just your point, help develop that game, help develop speed, decision-making, the kind of the challenge of it. I loved it. I'm gonna try and use this more.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's a great idea. We're going on about 55 minutes. How long can you guys hang?
As long as you need me.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because there's a couple more things that I just want to touch on, and
Yep.
then we'll wrap it up. Let's go into a little bit about coaching education. So let's talk about like what you have learned as a coach in the time you've been coaching.
Oh man, for me, it's I've been around some really patient, high level coaches. I helped with Dayton's son when he was with the Royals. Being around Rusty and JJ and the Royals front office all have sons, and just the patience that it takes, the loving piece of this, putting your arm around a kid when the failures happen, and encourage those. Tough love has to happen sometimes. Being a mentor, I wouldn't be where I'm at with the mentors that I had. So just I guess the patience, in a world that's really sped up, and the want it now, the fix it, the easy fix, and the just continue to be patient and love on kids and just teach the game. Be a teacher and a mentor. And whatever that looks different on everybody, and it probably is a little bit different for every kid. Every kid probably needs some more lovingness, and some needs some harder, tough love. But getting to know the kids and just making sure that you're along for the ride with them, not the other way around. It's their course, and we're there to help them get to where they want to go, wherever that place is. And that's kind of what I've learned as a coach, and I've been blessed to be around some pretty good ones.
Yeah, great stuff, Sean. It's funny, I'll use this word patient as well. I think I learned three things, right? Empathy, patience, and understanding, right? Empathy, that these are young men and women, softball players, right? They make mistakes. We make mistakes. They're going to make a lot of them because they're learning the game. So we have to be understanding of that and empathetic to that. And oftentimes as coaches, I still will say that I still use words or language or acronyms that players don't know, and I just assume they do. So a lot of times they're not quite up to speed with where I'm at, and so you got to have empathy there as well, and remember to slow yourself down and explain it, to teach it, Sean, as you mentioned earlier, and have that patience to allow them to get there. We're not creating robots here, right? I'm not coding this and plugging these guys on the assembly line. Each one of them is a unique person with human emotions and feelings and their own mental makeup. I think it's Zumi, right, who says we got to create feels, use language to help them feel what their body's doing through drills and through these skill acquisition exercises we put them through. So that understanding of that methodology they get to. But I'll tell you, Jimmy, I think the most important thing I've learned is to be thankful and to return the favor. I've been very, very fortunate in the last few years to get to work alongside Sean and Coach Diskin and Coach Bailey and Zumi and a lot of the guys in the Royals organization that many of the coaching peers I had as a youth coach don't have that access to. And I want to give that back. That's why I volunteer. That's why I take what these great coaches I'm around when I'm at ABCA recording stuff, taking notes. I take that back to my peers who aren't as fortunate to be in that spot. I'm lucky that I had a lot of great peer coaches as a youth coach, Coach Garrison, that, when I would struggle, I knew I could call him and tell him exactly what I was thinking. I didn't have to sugarcoat it. And we could have that difficult dialogue. So one of the things I would add for younger coaches coming up is be patient with yourself, right? We talk about patience from an athlete standpoint, but be patient with yourself and have empathy for yourself that you don't know it yet. And that's okay, because tip of the cap to you for just being in the dugout and putting in all the time and effort to coach these young men and women. And, find a buddy that you really can count on to bounce ideas. I don't know how many times Sean and I have talked on his drive home from wherever, just throwing baseball ideas. We don't always agree on them, but man, we sure have a good dialogue, and you leave it with a better feeling about how you want to approach a situation in your program.
Yeah, you can't agree. Everybody can't agree on everything all the time. That's not going to happen. I mean, I have other coaches we talk about, and I love those debates because we get better from those debates. I'm talking to another coach. I have one way of seeing it. He has another way. We talk about it. And then, sometimes it makes you see something differently. But I got to say, you both mentioned things. So, Sean, you said love was the word that I picked up on. And you had two words, Jeff, when you said robots and empathy. Okay, so I'll go to Sean first. Love, anybody that listens to this show knows that I always tell my players that I love them. Always. And I mean it sincerely. It's from my heart. And I tell them all the time. I say, I'll cut my arms off and run into a burning building for any one of you guys. That's exactly how much I care about you. Yes, we do have to be tough on them at times. But when I am tough on them, I can always go over to them, put my arm around them and say, Bud, I love you to death. But come on, you can't miss a sign. You have to be more focused.
One can be tough sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then empathy, yes, absolutely. We have to be empathetic because, again, it's a tough road. It's not simple. If it was, then everybody'd be playing in the major leagues. It's hard. And then the other thing you said about not creating robots, that's one of my phrases. I don't want robots. I want athletes. So I'm not gonna say this is the way we hit. I said, no, there's a couple of principles that we have to have. And I want to see this, that, and I'll give you drills that'll help you do that. Other than that, be an athlete. See the ball, hit it, and that's it. So I couldn't agree with both of you more than what you just said. I think what I want to do is I want to get to one last thing, and this is going to be tough. So I'm kind of...
Good, you go first, Sean.
I'm not good under pressure.
So when we were at the summit, we were all tossing around all these ideas and even everything that we just spoke about tonight. All of these problems that we've seen with baseball, trying to make it a better world for everybody. What are your thoughts? How do we do this?
Oh, man. I think, it's easy to moan. It's easy to groan, right? we've got to find the positive and accelerate the positive. There's a lot of good things that are going on too. There's a ton of things that we could probably write about or talk about what's happening at the youth level, what's happening at the high school level, travel level, high school level. I think we can definitely talk about a lot of the positive and not put that like there's nothing positive going on in the game, because there is. I think one of the things is, I think we can treat our profession and coaching a little bit more like a fraternity and accept different people in different aspects and understand what role they're trying to play in the game, and embrace what their niche is or what they're trying to do, and work together better, to be able to understand different things instead of pointing fingers and saying this is the problem or that's the problem. I think ultimately we have the same heart and where the game needs to go and where we want to see it, in 50 years or 70 years or whatever. And being able to have an open mind to, treat each other that have different, roles in the game. I think that's an important thing, as well, kind of see it through somebody else's lens, and keep the main thing, which is the kids and the game. It's not about the coaches or the instructors or anything in that realm. I think just, working together a little better and making sure that we leave it better than we found it, and trying to, talk about the good things, because there are good things going on. There's a lot of positive impacts that coaches are making, in all facets of the game and every level. And so, that's what I would say is, let's be a little more positive about how we're going about it and what we're doing, and pat each other on the back a little more, because there are good things going on. And if we work together, the game's going to be in a better place.
I love it. Go ahead, Jeff.
I really love when Shon talks. It's right. He's on the money, right? There are great things. I think we even said it at the summit. We have to be honest with ourselves. The level of baseball and the caliber of baseball player coming out of programs these days is amazing. We have intelligent baseball players with tremendous skills in athleticism. It's pretty impressive when you see some of these guys play the game. My passion, Jimmy, is not to say that it's an either or with Travel Academy or how much commitment you make to the game in or out of season. It's the idea that I would like the players in their community who maybe aren't academy to have that ability to grow with the game as well. Not everybody's going to be the 1% top athlete, right? Not everybody's going to be the .001 that goes to professional baseball or the 0.001s that make it to MLB. But we can take what we learn at each level of the game and pass that along within our communities to do a couple of really good things. Number one is I think we can organically grow baseball in each of our communities. And imagine if all of our communities had a robust recreational program where kids felt free and open and had some unstructured capabilities to play with their buddies without the pressures of eliteness being thrown at them. If that's for you, there's a place for you. We have that. And we've proven time and again how good that is. I see it every time on the field when we step on these travel tournaments. But I also like to see what's going on at the local park. If we have kids and the ages, as we've seen through many of the studies, at younger and younger ages leaving the sport, eventually we don't have baseball fields being supported by the parks and recs or the cities. And then where does it start, right? Because this is the pipeline that ultimately takes us to competitive ball or travel academies or the high schools, et cetera. And so for me, I think the focus is how do we organically grow that and support it within our community? Again, kind of tying it back to why I spend so much of my time working with the Royals on this is I've put a lot of effort into getting to know the high school coaches, to getting to know many of the academy coaches in our area and the travel teams, as well as the youth coaches that are part of the recreational leagues, because I think, one, the high school coaches have a big name, right? Everybody wants to be there. And so if we get them part of it, I had all the high school coaches, each one of them made a visit to my fall camp, and it was the bright spot of the day. And we had Alex Gordon out there at one of the camps. Now, obviously, Alex Gordon from the Royals was a really big deal, but I will tell you, it wasn't as much of a bigger deal than when one of the high school coaches showed up. These kids were like, oh, let me shape up and kind of, tuck my shirt in a little bit. And so getting them involved, getting the coaches to come to the clinics that the Royals are putting on for free and helping spread the gospel of what we think we can do with elevating the game. We had a meeting today where we talked about how we can do things with the leagues to help support, things like, for example, if you talk to my daughter, my boys love baseball. My daughter, not so much, because she spent her entire life having to go to baseball games. Not so much fun, right? But what if the ballparks, what if the leagues had at their field something that the kids could be doing during the game to entertain them? Maybe make it more, as Shon would say, an event, something that the family can join in on, and that you're not there just for baseball. So I think there's a lot of things we can do within our communities to support the leagues, to support the growth of the game from the ground level. And I think everybody, including the high school coaches, can play a good role in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will say, too, just to add to that, the camps and clinics that Jeff runs and helps us with, we have a tremendous following from our Royals alumni that will come out and be part of the camp and help with the drills and the skills that we put on. So, I mean, from top to bottom, our organization is really backed. The clinics, all the clinics that we do are free for kids within those organizations, to onboard and to get involved. And we have tremendous support from the organization and from our alumni around town to be able to help with that. So there's a really good connection between what Jeff's talking about and our office, our front office, and with our alumni.
Jimmy, it's super impressive. To be able to call these guys, say, hey, we're going to host a camp. Can you join? Well, we had 1,300 kids, Shon, last year from all the camps we did.
Wow.
Right. We had 270 kids at one camp.
Wow.
And that was a 3-day camp, Jimmy. And our alumni showed up, volunteer coaches show up. And that's my point of the community. I think all of us are really working hard to develop these relationships as coaches. So, now there's two birds with one stone. We have this fraternity of coaches. It's not like the coaches are just there talking to players. The coaches are talking to each other. So if you're a young coach, it doesn't matter if you're a, high travel academy coach or a recreational level coach. I don't care, because if you come, you might be able to talk to a more tenured coach, get some ideas. So it can become a coaching clinic as much as it's a player clinic. You're seeing how the drills are run and everybody learns, and that really strengthens the game in our community. And that's what I think we're really doing. And that's what makes me so proud to be part of the development organization.
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, we started this podcast, it's almost 3 years ago, and I wanted to do it on youth baseball because of, I felt the need to put something out there that could help people to, navigate this world of youth baseball. And I got to tell you that guys like you guys and a number of guests that, we've had on the show, you guys are the important guys. Your messages are the ones that we need to get out, through this podcast and other mediums any way we can for people to listen to, because, guys, what you guys put out there, we've been on a little bit over an hour. This is all beautiful stuff. And if people would listen to what you guys have to say, it's going to be a much better world.
Well, I appreciate you letting us talk with you tonight, too. I will also mention, if anybody wants any information that we have, our website is royals.mobilecoach.org. And all of our information is on that website. So if you, from practice plans to player development to coaching development, all the stuff that we've talked about, we've put it on the website. There's drills and skills on there from our instructors from minor and major leagues. There's all kinds of resources on there if anybody would like to have those. And one of the things is the give back part of this. We're trying to give as much as we can to anybody who is interested. And, I think it's awesome that you had us on tonight to be able to share what hopefully we can give to coaches and players and parents.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's so important. I mean, what the Kansas City Royals did by hosting us for this summit that we had, to me, said a lot that, a lot of people would think, major league teams wouldn't have that much interest in youth baseball, and to me it was very impressive and it meant a lot. So, the more we can get the message that the Kansas City Royals are putting out, that Shon Plack is putting out, Jeff Sopha is putting out. The more we can get that word out there and let people listen, I think that it'll be a much better world.
Appreciate that, Jimmy. I think
Thank
we all
you.
work hard at it, and it's great. Thank you for saying that.
Well, guys, I got to say, this has been great. I mean, first of all, it was a pleasure meeting you guys out in Kansas City. And now to have you on the show and to spend this time talking, just the three of us, this was fantastic. I really can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. It's a great opportunity for us. So the feeling's mutual.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jimmy. We appreciate you having us.
Right, and I'll tell you, it's always an open invitation. You have something new that comes out, maybe a new program or something that you're doing new, and you want to get it out, just text me, hey, Jim,
Absolutely.
You got some time, and believe me, I'll have the time. So thanks.
Careful what you wish for.
No, I mean, I'm serious. I would enjoy it. I really would. So again, guys, thanks so much. I appreciate it. And, you guys will both be in Dallas, right? January?
We'll be, yep.
All right. Well,
Absolutely.
we're gonna have to hook up in Dallas because I'll be there.
Absolutely. Dinner's on me.
We'll see about that. Thanks, guys.
Well, there you have it. Jeff Sopha and Shon Plack from the Kansas City Royals organization. What'd you think, Coach?
I loved it. I mean, I had the advantage of having to speak to them for 3 days out in Kansas City, so I kind of knew what to expect. But to get it recorded and so everybody else can hear it, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, they had a lot of interesting things to say. There was some different takes on things, some different ideas being thrown out there. Anything in particular you want to wrap up on?
I mean, everything that we talked about, pretty much anybody that has the right frame of mind and has the right intentions with youth baseball, we all kind of already know everything that we talked about. There were a couple of things that we did talk about that I actually want to clarify a little bit. One of the things that Jeff had said about scripting and asked if we had ever scripted, and my mind immediately went to my high school teams, and my answer was no. But the more I thought about it, I have done it in the aspect that he was talking about when he said, basically with a travel team and you have a tournament coming up, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, yeah, you kind of have to script it so that you make sure that everybody gets the right amount of playing time. You can't just throw 9 guys out there day in and day out and say, well, sooner or later I'll figure out how to get the other guys in. No. So I wanted to just clarify that I agree with Jeff that, yes, it should be done in those instances. With my high school team, it's a little harder to do it that way.
Yeah, I think one of the ideas that I had with that is fine because it was one of the first things I wanted to talk about too. With that, a couple of things. I think there's an age appropriateness to some of that as well. If we're looking at, because I can tell you when I was coaching just little league age ball, my 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, not travel, but the leagues, I scripted those games out 100%. Now I couldn't always follow it. Obviously, sometimes a pitcher got out of the inning in 4 pitches, and I'm not going to take him out. I'm going to let him go out the next inning if something like that happens, or vice versa. The kid can't find the plate, can't have everybody falling asleep. So. But I would actually do the full 6. Those are 6-inning games. I would do the full 6-inning games so that I wasn't, I didn't have a kid that just played right field and never got, so I was moving kids around. Again, it's town ball and it's 8 years old, 10 years old. Who cares? It's not about winning the game. It's about the development and letting the kids enjoy themselves and get out there and try different things. So I would do that for every game because in the middle of the 4th inning, I don't want to be like there, oh, crud, where did Johnny play for the last 2 innings? Or, I would set up where nobody sat on the bench for more than 1 inning in a row. When we had free substitution and it didn't, we didn't have those kind of strict rules. Obviously, then you get into travel ball where you have more strict rules where it depends. If you're batting the lineup, then you can do your free substitution. If you're not batting the lineup, then you have to be worried about, the whole reentry rule and all thing. And then obviously it gets more serious when you get into school ball.
Sure. And yeah, I think it's great that, we kind of clarified, because I agree with you definitely at the younger ages. If you have free substitution, yes, move them around. We want them to play every position. We want them to get experience. We want them to learn. So yeah, I agree with you, and I agree with Jeff, and I think it was a good thing we brought it up.
Yeah, and it's weird. It triggered something else in my mind, that a callback. And my apologies. I have a very poor memory for. I remember things that were a ton of stuff that's been said on the show, but I have a hard time remembering who said what, other than somebody like a Jeff Fry or Steve Springer, who they're so out there personalities that it sticks with you. But so we had one of our coaches on this year that talked about, we always talk about make it fun for the kids, make it fun for the kids. And he gave us a mild correction of make it enjoyable as opposed to making it fun, because it's not always supposed to be fun, but they should still enjoy what they're doing. And I think that falls into kind of the same category of an age appropriateness with a lot of stuff that Jeff was talking about with the younger kids and a couple of our other guests that we've had on recently. The youngest kids, it has to be fun, not necessarily, and maybe we're a little bit of splitting hairs, but I think there's a different connotation there. You can't ask a 5-year-old, was that enjoyable? Or there's, right. It's got to be fun. So it just fell into a broader category, not necessarily specifically with what you guys were talking about on this show. But that whole thing that we got to keep in mind is the age appropriateness of some of the things that we do in our approach and how we're trying to connect with the kids. It's going to be wildly different. And I don't know, it just brought it to light there, where I think the younger kids, you can definitely script out the games much more specifically. As they get older, you certainly want to have a framework. And even with your school ball, if you got 4 games in a week, and you've got your ace pitcher out there, and it turns out the team that you're playing is pretty weak, and you're going to steamroll him, you don't want to burn him up. You don't want to burn him up on a Monday, and you've got 3 more games that week. So there's certainly is some things like that you can do.
Yeah, but even in that case, like what you're talking about with high school baseball, you pretty much know your opponents at high school. Okay, so you know how the other teams are, so you could kind of script it. That doesn't mean that, like what you said is, you put your number one guy out there on the mound, and the team you're playing that you thought was going to be really good, maybe they had a bad day, so you're handling them very easy. And yes, to your point, you want to get them out. In the travel baseball world, you're going to go to a tournament. You're going to play a team from somewhere else that you've never seen, you never heard of, you don't know anything about them. It makes it a little harder.
Yeah, definitely. Although you still want to go back to, like I said, making sure everybody's getting their appropriate playing time and at bats, and that's tough to do without kind of planning that out. We're like, okay, this guy's going to pitch game 1, this guy's going to pitch game 2, this guy's going to pitch game 3. At least until you get into the playoff round, you have to have some of that set up to make sure you still have available arms and bodies and things like that. Or if you have pitchers that you think either complement each other or are wildly different from each other, and depending on your philosophy, sometimes you may want to do that where you're switching up. You got your heavy duty fastball pitcher, and he starts getting lit up. All right, I better bring in my junk guy, whereas I was planning on throwing fastball guy. It's, something like that. So you want to have, I don't know, call it a loose script. It's a game plan. Obviously you got to have a game plan. I hope you're not going into a 4-day tournament and just going, well, let's just see what we look like in warm-ups. So for the most part, you want to have something set together. So that could be the quote unquote scripting, even if it's not laid out like a grid. Like I said, when I was doing the youngest of kids, I would actually do it on like an Excel spreadsheet where I had each inning and each position, and this is where everybody's going to be. And I could probably follow it somewhere in the high 80 to 90% of the time, other than a kid getting sick, kid getting hurt, because it was rec ball, and I wasn't too concerned with we want to be competitive, but it wasn't about shutting a team down. That's for sure.
Sure. Like we say all the time, it's about making them better and making them want to come back the following year. So if you're burying a kid wherever, I don't care, second base, whatever, right field, and you're burying the kid there, okay, and the kid gets tired of playing that position, he's not going to be as happy as if he said, hey, Mom, you know what? I caught today. I played first base. I played left field, played a little shortstop. The kid's going to be more excited than if it's, he's in a position where he's not seeing the ball. There's no action. I mean, we've been over it a million times. Everybody knows that routine.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I loved, and I apologize, I'm not even sure which of the two guys said, was one of them used the statement, we are looking to develop lifelong fans.
Yeah.
And that, again, that goes right in line with what you were just talking about, that if they're not enjoying it, you're not getting invested in it, then they're gonna fall off, not just as a player, but as a fan. And obviously that just hurts the sport as a whole.
Yeah. And that was Shon that said that. He was, I actually remember he said something about he wants those players, when they have their first date, to bring them to Kaufman Stadium to see a Royals game, right?
Right. Yeah. I don't know how well that'll work out for him, but the intention is good. Certainly, the idea of that seems pretty cool.
Well, look at it this way. Hopefully, that game they're playing the Yankees. All right, so they'll make it enjoyable.
Would that be good for a Kansas City Royal fan?
Well, nowadays it would. Kansas City
this
beat
year.
them up.
This year was 50-50, but generally. But anyway. So yeah, anything else jump out at you?
That was pretty much it. I mean, like I said, they're great minds, both of them. They had a lot of good stuff, and I'm just happy. I was happy to be able to talk to them, and happy that our listeners are going to get to hear what their visions are.
All right, great. So if you guys enjoyed that, and I hope you did, because it was certainly a different direction than what we have been going on as of late, dealing a little bit more with the youth end of things as opposed to the higher end, the high school and college stuff that we've talked about. So we'd appreciate it if you would go ahead and give us a rating, whether it be on Apple or Spotify, however you listen to us. Give us a rating, give us a review. We love it. Reach out to us at clearingthebases@gmail.com. You can follow us on the socials. On X is at the CTB show, or us as our individual names. Go ahead and reach out to it. We love having some interaction with you guys. You've got ideas for future shows. We've got a lot of stuff lined up, but of course we're always looking for more ideas. Just like on our coaching careers, we're always open to new and exciting things. So go ahead and reach out to us. We love it. Tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell a teammate. Let us know what you think of the show, and really appreciate everybody giving us their time. We love having guys like this on because you can hear the excitement and energy in their voice. You know that they're always giving 100% effort and keeping a positive mental attitude. Final thoughts, Coach?
I was just so happy to be part of that Youth Baseball Summit, and there you go. I mean, Jeff and Shon are two reasons why it was so exciting to be there, because to be able to network with people like that is priceless. So I just can't thank everyone enough. And I could tell you, I'm looking forward to going to Dallas next week at the convention, where I will see all of these people another time, because I know that these people understand people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.